Modern homes are often praised for being airtight and energy efficient, but there is a hidden cost to living in a sealed box that our ancestors never had to pay. If you have ever felt that heavy, stagnant winter air that seems to cling to the back of your throat, you're experiencing the downside of contemporary construction. In contrast, the drafty, high-ceilinged homes of a century ago possessed a natural respiratory system that modern engineering has struggled to replicate. Before we dive into the mechanics of how these vintage structures actually kept people healthier during the flu seasons of the past, please take a moment to subscribe to Atten Recounts so you never miss our deep dives into the forgotten wisdom of history. Understanding the physics of old-world ventilation is not just a lesson in architecture. It is a vital blueprint for improving your own health and air quality today. The intentional draft provided a constant stream of fresh oxygen. The most significant difference between a home built in 1920 and one built in 2020 is the rate of air exchange. Older homes were never intended to be airtight. Builders utilized breathable materials like lime plaster, solid wood and stone, which allowed for a slow but steady migration of moisture and air through the walls themselves. This phenomenon, often called breathing, ensured that carbon dioxide and indoor pollutants never reached the toxic concentrations we find in modern vapor barrier-wrapped apartments. While we often complain about the drafts around old sash windows, those very gaps served as a primitive but effective mechanical ventilation system. As cold, oxygen-rich air pushed inside, it forced stale, germ-laden air out through the chimney or the attic. This constant cycling meant that the viral load in a room during a winter illness was significantly lower than in a modern room where the same air might circulate for hours or even days. High ceilings and the stack effect managed indoor pollutants naturally. Historical architecture utilized the laws of thermodynamics to keep air moving even when there was no wind outside. In the Victorian and Edwardian eras, high ceilings were not merely an aesthetic choice for the wealthy. They were a functional health feature. Because heat rises, the warmest air, which also happened to be the air most saturated with respiratory droplets, wood smoke and cooking fumes, would collect high above the breathing zone of the inhabitants. This is known as the stack effect. In an old home, this rising warm air would eventually find its way out through unsealed attic floorboards or specialized roof vents, creating a natural vacuum that pulled fresh air in from the lower levels. For a senior living in a modern home with 8-foot ceilings, the breathable air zone is much smaller, meaning you are constantly rebreathing the same air. To recreate this today without a major renovation, one can strategically use the top-down window method. By opening the top sash of a window just an inch and the bottom sash of a window on the opposite side of the house, you create a controlled version of this historical air current. Radiative heat preserved humidity levels that modern forced air destroys. The way we heat our homes has, fundamentally changed our internal biology. Old homes relied on radiant heat sources like cast-iron radiators or masonry fireplaces. These methods heat objects and people directly rather than just blowing hot air around. Modern forced air systems are notorious for stripping moisture from the environment, leading to humidity levels that often drop below 20% in the winter. This desert-like dryness parches the mucous membranes in our nasal passages, which are our first line of defense against viruses. When these membranes dry out and crack, pathogens enter the bloodstream with ease. Our ancestors avoided this by keeping a heavy iron kettle on top of the radiator or the wood stove. This constant gentle evaporation maintained a relative humidity of 40 to 60%, the sweet spot where viruses struggle to survive and human lungs thrive. Seniors today can apply this by ditching the noisy, mould-prone electric humidifiers in favour of a simple stove-top simmering pot, or placing water-filled ceramic crocks near heat sources to mimic that steady, passive moisture release. Natural materials acted as passive air purifiers and moisture regulators. The chemistry of an old home was far less volatile than the synthetic environments we inhabit now. Historic interiors were finished with lime wash, milk paint, and solid hardwoods rather than the formaldehyde-laden particle board and off-gassing carpets common today. Lime plaster, in particular, is naturally antimicrobial and high in pH, which helps inhibit the growth of mould and mildew on interior surfaces. Furthermore, these natural materials are hygroscopic, meaning they can absorb excess moisture when the air is damp and release it when the air is dry. This acted as a massive whole-house buffer against the respiratory irritants that trigger asthma and winter coughs. To bring this into a modern context, you should prioritize living materials in your immediate environment. Swapping synthetic curtains for heavy linen or wool and replacing plastic storage bins with wicker or wood can subtly improve the ionic balance of your indoor air. Even the addition of specific historic houseplants like the sansevieria, which was popular in early 20th century parlours, can help because they perform a specific type of photosynthesis that releases oxygen at night, precisely when you are sleeping in a closed room. Sunlight was treated as a primary disinfectant for the home. Before the discovery of antibiotics, the sun cure was a legitimate medical prescription, and architects designed homes to maximize ultraviolet exposure. Deep porches were for summer, but large south-facing windows were the engines of winter health. UV light is a potent natural disinfectant that kills many airborne bacteria and viruses on contact. Our ancestors would air out their bedding and rugs in the winter sun, a practice that seems tedious today, but was remarkably effective at sanitizing the home. Modern windows often have UV-blocking coatings to protect furniture from fading, but this also prevents the natural sanitization of our living spaces. To recreate the benefits of the sun-drenched old home, you should make a habit of opening your curtains fully during peak daylight hours, and, if the temperature allows, opening the windows for just 10 minutes at noon. This shock ventilation replaces the entire volume of air in the room with fresh, ionized outside air without significantly chilling the thermal mass of your walls and furniture. Practical steps to reclaim your winter air quality. If you want to live with the respiratory vigour of a 19th century pioneer while keeping your 21st century comforts, start with a focused air cycling routine. Twice a day, regardless of the temperature, open a door at the front of the house and a window at the back for exactly 5 minutes. This creates a through draft that clears out the invisible bioeffluents that accumulate from cooking and breathing. Secondly, invest in a simple hygrometer to monitor your humidity. If it drops below 40%, use the vintage method of placing a bowl of water near your heat register or radiator. Finally, consider the bedroom sanctuary rule. Keep your bedroom slightly cooler than the rest of the house, and ensure there is some form of passive air movement, such as a cracked window or a non-oscillating fan, to prevent the build-up of CO2 overnight. These habits cost nothing but offer the same protective benefits that once made the drafty old farmhouse a bastion of winter health. If you found these historical insights and practical tips valuable, please share this video with someone who values the wisdom of the past, and subscribe to Atten Recounts for more deep dives into the secrets of history.